Hi, cuties! Oh, thank you. Pi Pi and I are in bed, as well as Lucy. But there's a reason Pi Pi and I are snuggling in bed, and that's because we got in a fight with a pit bull. The pit bull broke through our fence and attacked my dog. She's fine. I'm less so. I'm okay, but I'm just in a lot of pain. Pi Pi is miraculously unharmed. She's a street dog. She knows how to fight, even against a big pit bull, apparently. She's just a little traumatized, so she's staying with me right now. Anyway, hi. Enough talk about pit bull attacks. Let's talk about books. Specifically, all the books that I read in May. I started the month with a trilogy by one of my favorite authors, Marie Lu. We have The Young Elites, The Rose Society, and The Midnight Star. Marie Lu also wrote the Legend trilogy, and I didn't think I would like this one more than Legend. Surprise! I do! Ow! I just twisted a bad way. This was really, really good. This has such great, complicated characters. They're so believably flawed, and oh boy, do I love me some Maggiano, but I'm in who doesn't. I thought this was gonna be a mediocre trilogy, but damn, Marie Lu, you got me good. And such twists that happen, really great twist of an ending. You go on such an emotional journey with these characters, from starting out liking the characters to hating them, and vice versa with other characters. It's so well done, and Marie Lu just once again proves what an amazing writer she is. Guys, go pick up this trilogy. It's amazing. And Maggiano is my one true love now. The next book that I read, I don't actually have on me right now, because I read it in store, if you remember my little Cinco de Mayo field trip. I read The Left-Hander's Handbook. I read it in like a half an hour because it's just like one sentence on each page, except for the little profiles of all the famous left-handed people. A lot of the information I already knew because as a left-handed person, you tend to drift towards more left-handed people, and any article that you read about left-handers, as a lefty, you have to go read it and confirm if that is in fact you. Pretty much all the information in the book describe me pretty well. Recommend if you're a left-hander who wants to feel vindicated, or if you're a right-hander who wants to understand the other side of the body. Oh, I'm in so much pain. Oh. That's fine. I'm fine. And the next book that I read was The Disasters by M.K. England. And this was amazing. Honestly, I read a lot of amazing books in May. I had a very good reading month, but this one is so fun. It has a really diverse cast of outcasts, I guess. It's action-packed. Again, very believably flawed characters. So this one could be a standalone, but I hope it's not. There is a little bit left at the end where you're like, we could go on from here. I really, really hope that it does, because it was just amazing. It was so fun. It was exactly the type of sci-fi book that should exist, because a lot of sci-fi books tend to be very serious and they want all their science, and a lot of sci-fi books just all feel like the same thing. The only thing that this feels similar to is Firefly. It's comedy in space while still being a space story. It's just a group of misfits who get thrown together and are forced to save the galaxy. That's what you can strip a lot of books down to. But the characters make this book. You have so many good, interesting characters that have complicated relationships and interesting relationships and fun relationships, and it's really great with its diversity on race and gender identification and sexual orientation. It's just so fun, so good. I love these characters. I love this book. Want more? Give me more. The next book that I have for you is, I don't know what this accent is because painkillers. The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. A very photographical, I can't speak English now. A very pretty book that's been on a lot of bookstagrams and booklers and stuff, and everybody seems to like this book or think it's mediocre. I haven't heard bad things about it, but I've heard everywhere from the 3-star to 5-star range. I 4-starred this book. I think this was really interesting. It gives you a kind of obviously fantastical feel. It's kind of an urban fantasy, and it plays on these fictional fairy tales that were written by the main character's grandmother. Of course, you know, the main character's finding out their history and how real they are. And there are some really good twists in this, and some really shocking moments. I literally screamed for a moment at one point. It has an ending that I'm like, there could be more of this series, and I think there might be more. But it also stands alone really well. People don't like the main character, but I found her very believable. Again, I'm reading all these books with very believable characters and how they're acting in these situations. And for the crazy upbringing that this girl had with her mom, it makes sense for how her behavior is and her interactions and how she presents herself to other people. A lot of people feel like it was slow to get to the big craziness, but I think it was paced well. I think it needed that slower build up. I think it needed that in order to create the sense of suspense and mystery, especially in the case of having a missing person as a central part of the plot. So yes, I recommend The Hazelwood. This month I've read a lot of different genres. We've gone from straight up fantasy to sci-fi to nonfiction to urban fantasy. Now I went with a genre that I don't read very often, which is straight up mystery. This is The Darkest Corners by Kara Thomas. This is an author that gets recommended a lot. I haven't read anything else by her. I don't think I read any reviews about this book. I think I gave it a 3.5. This one did feel slow to me. The ending was crazy though. There's a point where you think it's gonna end and it doesn't. And it's like, oh, there's more to the story. There were points within the beginning of the book that I thought weren't very necessary for the story, and there wasn't a wrap up on some of the relationships. And I didn't really like that loose end, or the couple of loose ends that happened. I thought we needed a little bit more resolution for some of the characters, particularly with the main character Tessa and Decker. Also, this book has my two least favorite character names, which is Tessa and Callie. I feel like I hear these names in so many books all the time, and I hate them. I don't like the name Callie very much. Sorry to all the Callies out there, but I really don't like your name. It's just a personal preference. Same with Tessa or Tess. There's just too many characters with this name. It's like growing up and there were a million Jessicas and Jennifers in my classes, and now that name is tainted forever. It seems in this generation of contemporary books, there are a lot of Tessas and there are a lot of Callie, there are a lot of Cassies. There's just some names that they feel so unoriginal now. There are just some names that have infested the world of contemporary literature, and it kills me. Again, sorry if you're named that name. I don't have a problem with people who are named that in real life, but in a book, I get irrationally annoyed by it. And to have two of those names in one book is how I feel about that. This was okay. If you like suspense with murder and thriller stuff, you might like this a lot more than I did. And the last physical book that I have is a historical fiction, Thousand Cranes by Yasunari Kawabata. This one was one of the books that I picked up during my bookstore crawl, and I'm disappointed. Hear me out. I just did a degree in Japanese. I'm really sick of these types of books. This is set post-war in Japan, and I almost didn't finish it. This almost became a DNF because I hated it. It was so textbook, even though it's a fictional story. While I was reading it, I thought I should have been taking notes to write an essay about it. And then I came back to reality and was like, I don't have to do that anymore. But this book, it just sucked. The translation was so dry. So there's an affair in this, but this affair comes out of nowhere with no foundation. So the main character goes to a tea ceremony, which is secretly a miai set up for him. And it's set up by a woman who I guess was the mistress of his dead father. But the other mistress of his dead father shows up. That mistress and the main character, Kikuji, sleep together. And she's like twice his age, and there was just like, all of a sudden, they were just chatting and walking, and then the next scene, they just got done having sex, and I'm like, what? And then she dies later. She was basically a character that was playing pity party the whole time. There was just no real substance to her, and she has a daughter that later Kikuji falls more in love with, I guess. And then there's the girl who he was supposed to be engaged to when he was supposed to be at the Miai, who has a 1,000 crane kerchief. I guess that's why it's titled 1,000 Cranes. I didn't get it. It didn't make sense. Everybody freaking dies, basically. There's no resolution, which in Japanese literature that tends to happen a lot. That's a thing from older literature, but it just sucked. I hated it. And I don't hate a lot of older Japanese stories, but I hated this one a lot. That was the only 1 star of the month. We have 3 more books to get to, but I don't physically have them. What? How did I read such things? I didn't. I listened. Yes, IQ. Listen to audiobooks. And this was something I didn't think I could do. That's why I've put off audiobooks for so long. A lot of people recommend doing audiobooks on your commute to work, and I didn't think my brain could retain the same information that I do when I physically read a book. But apparently I can! I've read 3 so far, I'm on my 4th. To ease myself into the realm of audiobooks, I read Geekerella by Ashley Poston. Poston? And it's a nerdy convention-going girl retelling of Cinderella. And it was so fun! It's kind of a love letter to the convention scene, which I'm like, yes, my heart. The only thing I didn't like about it, it's narrated by two people. There's two perspectives, there's a male and a female, and I didn't like the voice of the male because he sounded so much older than the characters. The character is supposed to be 18. Every time it switched between Elle and Darian, the narrator would say the name. And so you'd hear Elle as the girl who read Elle. And then every time you heard Darian, he would say Darian. And it just killed me a little bit. It sounded like some dramatic guy reading it. He sounded like he was much older than 18. The character's an actor, so I suppose it worked. But I really, really liked Geekerella. I do want to own a physical copy of it eventually. It's one of those where I kind of want to go back and read certain scenes that I really enjoyed. I'm really happy about the dog situation in that book. That was good. Because it was a wiener dog. Like a woosy dog. She's part wiener dog. She's super now. She wasn't involved in the pit bull incident. So after finishing Geekerella, I went a little hardcore and I went to a higher fantasy book, and that was The Bells by Donielle Clayton. And holy crap. Now, I think there are two types of people who read The Bells. There are people who freaking loved it and people who hate it. I loved it. The book does go against my rule of I don't usually like books with a pretty girl on the cover in a pretty dress, but this works so well. It created such a vivid and beautiful and creative world. And the narrator has such a beautiful voice. The way that the author describes things in so many different senses of, you know, sight, feel, taste, touch. I mean, all of them. When you read the book or when you listen to the book, you feel like you're at a spa. And the descriptions of this place and the things in it and the people in it are massaging your brain. That sounded kind of gross. But you get what I mean? The only real issues I had, because the narrator is great at making voices, but a lot of the other girl characters are this high-pitched annoying voice that I couldn't stand. But the way she changed her voice for the main villain was superb. This was such a good book to visualize. I really need this to be a TV series or a movie because visually it would be stunning. Go listen to the audiobook of The Bells, guys. It's so good. And I have the second book in my queue. I didn't mention the app that I use for this. I don't use Audible like everyone else. I use Libby. For all of you complaining about me not going and getting books from the library, I say haha to you, because Libby is an app you can use with your library's digital library, basically. It's not sponsored, but I wouldn't mind it, Libby. You sign into your account with your library card, and you check out books just the same as you would with a physical book at your library. So right now, I have a hold on place for the second book in The Bells. I am waiting, but I still have like over 6 weeks to wait, and I don't know if I can wait that long. So if you can get your hands on it, do it now. And finally, the last audiobook I read was a book that I was teetering on reading or not reading. And that's because it is a Pride and Prejudice retelling. I love Pride and Prejudice, like a lot. Although, side note, so many other people on the internet, and booktubers especially, love the 2005 Keira Knightley version of Pride and Prejudice. I am not a huge fan of that version. I feel like the movie was just made for aesthetics and not the story. Anyway, what was I talking about? Right. Pride and Prejudice retellings. So the last book that I listened to for my May reads was Pride by E.B. Savoy. So this is a Pride and Prejudice remix. It's set in modern day Brooklyn, and it follows Zuri, who's our Elizabeth Bennet, and she's 17 and applying for college when right across the street, in a house that has been completely remodeled for the super rich family to move in, moves in Ainsley and Darius Darcy, which I thought was hilarious. Not that they made Bingley and Darcy brothers, because that's cool. They named Darcy Darius Darcy. And I'm like, you know his real name is Fitzwilliam Darcy, so you could have just called him Fitz or William, or, you know, other variations of that name, and his last name would still be Darcy, and thus could still be called Darcy. But no, we wanted double Darciness. We wanted Darius Darcy, so I just found that personally hilarious. And there's a big shift in our characters, and some new additions to it, which I thought were great. In the beginning, it was kind of hard for me to get into. I think I was trying too much to figure out what they were doing with Pride and Prejudice, but because it's such a different story. You can't do that. There were times where the characterization of Darcy didn't really seem to fit with the usual Darcy character. I think the way that it's done is done well still. I did feel like the ending was really quick. It was a very short listen. It was only 6 hours long as an audiobook. I felt like it could have been much longer. I felt like the scandal with the Lydia character, Layla, could have been much bigger, and the time for Zuri to grow in her love for Darius could have been stretched more, because that's the whole thing with Pride and Prejudice. It's a very slow burn for these two couples, and it felt like they really got together fairly quickly, I would say. Even after he confesses how much he loves her the first time, and then she gets angry at him, and then he has to be like, this is what happened. I felt like the forgiveness for his actions went so fast that it didn't seem as believable there. In the original Pride and Prejudice, Darcy has a lot of fixing to do for the problems that he technically caused, especially with Wickham. Overall, I think as a remix, this is a great story. It's very fun, it's very fast, but I think in terms of Pride and Prejudice retellings, it's not one of my favorites. It's still a really good one and really fun. It just could have been longer. It could have had more to the climax. So I read like 11 books this past month, which is crazy, and I'm way ahead of schedule on my Goodreads goal, so that's fun. And now I'm horribly addicted to audiobooks, so there you go. I still stand by being very anti-ebook because I've tried ebooks before and I know for a fact I don't retain the same amount as I do with a physical book. But audiobooks have proven me wrong. I wonder what the next new way to read books will be. Maybe one day you'll just like hold it to your head and download the information like in the Matrix. I would get a lot of books done if that was how it worked. So what did you guys read in the month of May? Put them down in the comments below or on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter. And I'll see you next time, cuties. Hopefully in less pain. Bye!